Let's take you to Cairo. We can talk to Dr. H.A. Helyer, Associate Fellow with the Royal United Services Institute. Thank you very much for being with us, Doctor. Just give us a sense of how people across Egypt are feeling about this new law.
Well, the law is very interesting. It came into force earlier this week, and you had protests take place almost immediately. The security services then allowed one protest to go forward, even though it was before the 3-day deadline. So obviously there are ways in which the law can be circumvented. And at the same time, on the first day that the protests took place in order to protest this law, the police seemed to ignore certain provisions of that very same law when plainclothes policemen actually arrested and detained people. So the protest law has created quite a lot of dissent within Egypt at present at how it's being used and how it's being applied, and the very concept of having a law passed at this particular time anyway. Remember, this is Egypt, where protests have actually changed the face of the political landscape many times, and for there to be a protest law that the overwhelming majority of human rights organizations and civil rights organizations have objected to is really quite bizarre.
So it's interesting that what we've seen on the streets today, of course, is the usual pro-Morsi demonstrators out and about, but what you're saying is it's right across Egyptian society. People are worried about this law. Perhaps are they fearing that we're going to see an even deepening of the security state in a way?
I'd be cautious about drawing that conclusion too much, only because I think that Egypt, over the past 3 years, has gone through a period of quite some instability, and I think that there is a good portion of Egyptian society that will be willing to tolerate certain measures like this if they, or at least if they think that this will bring stability to them. Having said that, when you come into the political arena as well as the wider activist arena, then yes, there's a huge amount of dissent and opposition to this law, both within and without, I have to say, the government itself. You have the Egyptian Social Democrats, for example, who serve within the interim government at present, and they themselves are split on this law. The Deputy Prime Minister, Ziad Bahreddin, is reportedly very unhappy with the law and didn't want it to go forward, whereas the Prime Minister, who's also in the Social Democrats, signed off on it. So I think that you do see a large swathe of opposition to the law across the Egyptian political elite and the activist arena.
Just looking at Twitter this morning, there seemed to be growing concern, anger as well, about the arrest of Alaa Abdel Fattah. What is the reaction, sort of more in the more mainstream, to that arrest?
Well, Alaa Abdel Fattah has actually been issued with an arrest warrant several times over the past 3, 4, 5 years. It seems that the use of arrest warrants when it comes to this particular family, Alaa, and relatives of his who are also activists, has become quite commonplace. Arrest warrants were issued under the SCAF regime in 2011. They were issued under Morsi's government as well, and now there's another one that was issued earlier this week. Now, Alaa Abdel Fattah actually came out publicly and said that he would present himself to the Prosecutor General on Saturday, even though he denied being guilty of any crime whatsoever. But he did publicly say that he would do that. Last night, he was detained from his home, where the police reportedly broke into his house and picked him up, and also took computers and so on. And then following that, perhaps a coincidence, who knows, the Twitter accounts of his wife was hacked, as well as the No Military Trials account on Facebook. It's an interesting coincidence, to be fair.
Dr. Helyer, thank you very much for joining us from Cairo.
Thank you.
Now, you might remember the story we brought you earlier this week about the fatal accident at the